What if it could be different for all the little brown girls in the world? I'm out here singing just for you. So baby, keep your head up. If I can do it, so can you. 'Cause I know there's a different story for me, mama. Use my name. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we're live.
Okay.
Deneza, welcome to the show.
Thank
Dang,
you.
it's I feel like we saw you for your birthday brunch, the belated birthday brunch, and what's been going on? Let's see. You've moved to the big city, doing big girl things.
Yes.
You've been surviving the pandemic as a nurse, and then you're still cultivating this this side hustle, this passion for music. And you're trying, and then you got to live your own life, this personal life, just juggling a million things.
Yes.
So a natural place to start is, how long you've been doing music for, and how you've been juggling that with your day job.
Yeah.
So I guess to make it more clear, how'd you get into nursing?
Sure. I knew I wanted to do music my whole life, but I knew very early that that would be hard to bring to my parents and for them to just be like, yeah, you should do that. And there's just a lot of pressure. My parents are immigrants from the Philippines. My dad was an architect and my mom was a nurse. And there's a lot of sentimental detail to that story because, for example, like my mom practiced as a nurse in the Philippines, but then she worked alone in Saudi Arabia for 2 years so that they would sponsor her citizenship. And like she couldn't see my dad or my brother. And then she worked in Texas for another year so that they would sponsor everybody's citizenship and bring them over to the States. And so she did a lot of sacrifice for our family. So by the time I was 17, 18 years old, I knew I wanted to do music, but I felt a lot of pressure already. Like, I have to support my family. Like, our parents as immigrants, like for me, like they sacrificed so much, so I didn't want to disrespect that or for that to go in vain. And I wanted them to know, like, I can take care of myself. You don't have to worry about me. So I chose nursing initially just to kind of show them that I was willing to try it. And by the time I was like ready to be like, I quit, like I want to do music so badly, my mom actually got sick. And I was taking care of her. She developed a rare neurological disease called multiple system atrophy, which is very similar to, in some ways, to ALS, like what Stephen Hawking had. And by that point, I was like, well, I could quit, but I want her to know that I'll be okay and I can handle myself and she doesn't have to worry. And I want to make her proud. So I was taking care of her at the time and I was like juggling nursing school. So I decided to go through with it, and she actually lived to see my graduation and before she passed away, and I finished nursing school. And going through all of that, like in slow motion, I promised myself, like, once this is done, like, you have to pursue what you want to do, because your parents take you so much further than they could have ever been because they didn't get to have to even think about like what they love to do. They were just in survival mode that whole time.
And do you still feel her today?
Yeah.
You do?
Absolutely.
So as you continue to cultivate this passion of music, do you think she is just as proud as she once saw you during graduation?
I think so. But it took me a long time. It took a lot of like, because it wasn't in this pretty box. I mean, we were fighting in the end, like, because I didn't want to be a nurse. I wanted to sing. I was bitter. I mean, a part of me obviously understood, but I was a kid. Like, I was 19, 20 at the time that this was all going on, and the peak, 22 when she passed, and I'm 27 now. It took me a really long time because I didn't understand, like, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, why are you making me do this thing that I don't want to do when I know what I'm meant to do? And there was a lot of self-blame. Like, I felt like a bad daughter. I felt like I was ungrateful. I didn't understand what I was going through, and there was nobody that looked like me on TV or in music. You know, like, there's no brown women that could be like, what you're going through is normal and it's okay and you're not a bad daughter. And your parents just don't know how to bridge that gap and communicate with you because their parents didn't do it. And everyone's human. It's no one's fault. Like, I didn't have any of that navigation. I had to figure that out myself. And it took me a really long time, but like, I know she's proud. Like I get to do so many things because of what her and my dad did for me and for themselves and for the family. And that's, I think, what matters most is like they didn't get to think about what they want. They didn't get to think about mental health. Like they didn't have any privilege to do that, but they gave me that. So, I mean, if I were her, I'd be proud. So I have a lot of faith now, a few years later, that she's proud for sure.
Yeah. At the end of the day, are you at a point where you realize that our parents want us to be at a certain state of comfort and safety, and it's not necessarily how we get there, and maybe how they grew up or what they did for work is what they know, so they just project that onto their kids?
Mm-hmm.
So is that something you realize now, or is that something that you've had a conversation you've had with your dad of like hey, I'm okay, I'm doing my thing, I'm living on my own, I can still do music?
Mm-hmm.
What are his thoughts on that, and do you think that's what they really wanted, was some comfort and safety?
I think what they really wanted was comfort and safety, yes, but we never had conversations. There was such, not just like the language barrier, because I can't speak our native language fluently. So not just that, like when I say language barrier, people are like, oh yeah, like English is your first language. But there's also just the generational barrier of like, they just can't understand and I can't understand them. And because I couldn't talk to them, because we just couldn't explain or have an exchange, I really had to do a lot of that on my own, and it was really hard. It was really isolating. It's become everything I write about in my music today, because I'm just having these conversations with myself, trying to navigate what has happened. But I think for sure they just want comfort and safety, and I think they don't know sometimes, some parents worse than others, better than others. They don't know that there's other ways, because maybe, I'm sure my Lola since day one has been like, be a nurse, be a nurse. This is the only way, otherwise you're gonna die. Like, be a nurse. So like, I've come a long way, because before I was angry and bitter and I didn't understand why, I don't have kids of my own. Of course we don't get it. But I'm in a better place where it's just like, that's what was put on them. They never learned how to communicate any other way, or they never learned that life could be successful in other avenues. So I'm definitely in a good place. Like, I know they wanted the best, just like most good parents. They just were probably, they had the same pressures put on them. So
sure,
that's all they know.
Yeah, life was different. Some may say simpler. I mean, the amount of options, the number of options with what we can do with our lives today, like you said earlier, it's a privilege, but it's like kind of crippling. It's to think about what we could be doing, and there's too many options, I think. Where did you find solace or clarity in helping you navigate that relationship with your parents? Was it through other Filipinas? Was it through music? Was it where did you find that?
Having grown up in Indiana before moving to Chicago, there aren't really other Filipinos, so I
got a taste of that during our photo shoot.
Yes. So I didn't have like that community, and I can see in retrospect how like younger me was like so lost. Like I had no, like, it was before I found all the cool Instagram accounts that are like therapy Instagrams, but for people of like Asian descent. Like before I found any of that stuff that I'm like so in connection with today, there was no content, no show, no book, nothing. I actually, I really found it myself in writing music and if you think about writing music, like it's like you're having a conversation with yourself, because I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And I just found my own way and trusted my own heart, and in finding solace, I think the biggest realization was just realizing that our parents are people and they do the best that they can. And also I have a lot of compassion for what they've done, not just because I'm grateful, but because I can't imagine falling in love in my home country, the only place I know, and then being like, let's go somewhere else. Like we'll have everything we need. Our kids won't suffer like we have in some ways. We won't be in poverty. Like the place that you don't know, where they don't speak the same language and you look different from everyone else and you might be discriminated against, and all the experiences that immigrants go through just because they know that their kids will be better off. Like that in itself is traumatic, and I think that's a trauma that some of our parents never really overcome, but they just know that's the only thing that they know.
Not being able to live a fulfilled life? or like for themselves?
I think for themselves. I think, especially with. I just think it's hard. I think that they, like, for example, my father, like, very social, and when he was my age, had a lot of friends, very active, very outgoing. But ever since he moved to the States, I didn't know this because he's been the way he is since I have been alive. But I didn't know. But ever since he moved to the States, very quiet, very stoic, does not go out, keeps to himself. I thought that was my dad, but I guess he's a totally different person. Like, when he was in his youth, and
what changed? Is it the setting? Is it location?
It was the setting. It's not being around people that you can relate to, because where we happen to live, like, there was just not other Filipino families that you could befriend. Like, we had one. I think it was that lack of community, and I mean, I can only imagine like how scary that could have been, and how you're even more likely to project the pressures that were put on you by your parents onto your kids in another country where you really, really want them to make it. It all goes back to just realizing they're people. And
did you ever ask them like what made them move to Indiana?
I did. The only person they knew was my aunt, and she lived there, and that's why they chose it.
Gotcha.
They could have picked Hawaii. They could have picked California. It's warm. Not even talking about the diversity. It's just warm.
Maybe they didn't have the luxury to pick. So when you say these other places, is it because they had friends or family in these other places?
No, I'm just like, of all the places you could have chosen in the States,
so they
these
just
are
didn't
beautiful,
know anyone.
warm places. They just didn't know anyone.
Well, so is the
But
Philippines, right?
Exactly. So I understand. No, my mom's sister was the only one she knew when they came to Texas. She just came to Texas because that was where her assignment was. And she was like, well, I know my sister in Indiana, so let's drive there and never move again.
Wow.
And I was born there, so.
Oh, that's wild. Do you feel like you're going to stay in Chicago for the immediate future, at least?
I think so. A lot of the things that I didn't have growing up, like other Filipino friends or just like an Asian community alone, is so foreign to me and exciting to me, and I have it here in both like professional relationships and personal friendships. I don't want to. I'm so happy. Like, I feel like someone should have shook me by the shoulders and been like, you belong here. Like, it's not you. Like, you're just in a place that doesn't have, like, not having community will really do something to you. And it's changed my life, like, in the last, since however many months
was a symptom from the pandemic, when people were forced to stay in their homes for a prolonged period of time and quarantine and work from home, and they don't, and even like online learning or online meetings like is not the same.
Yeah.
Right? So, which is a good segue into like, how has agency nursing been for you? Oh, and then especially that one nurse that is criminally charged, right? So how has that been? How I know, us being in the medical field, like, I know there's a chronic shortage, which, is a demand for agency nurses like you. But that ultimately leads to patient safety, right? So how has that experience been for you?
It's been interesting. I am finding out more and more every day, especially with recent events, that I am very passionate about things when I feel like they're not the way that they should be. Like, there's an injustice, yes, and I can't let it go. I can't just like go home, because that with work, especially because I want to focus on music and 100% like set those boundaries, because work is very stressful. I want to like clock out and just go home. And that's not how it works. And that's not how it works. It's very stressful because you can't just ignore it, because it affects your safety, your patient safety, your license, the integrity of the whole system. It's a lot, and I've had to set really, really heavy boundaries. And working as an agency nurse, where you're typically in an environment where there's a lot of new nurses, so you are the experienced one, and there isn't usually someone more experienced than you, and sometimes there is, but it's not often. So you're pretty much on your own, and you're forced to really learn how to be a better nurse. You're forced how to jump in unexpected, spontaneous situations, which again makes me a better nurse. But you have to learn how to set boundaries, how to also navigate a lot of people asking you for help. Like, I didn't realize how much of a resource you become, not just as an extra body and a person that can take patients, but you become someone that people are like, oh, she probably knows how to do this thing that I don't know how to do. I've been a nurse for 6 months. Let me ask Deneza for help. That happens a lot. And I didn't realize how much I love teaching and how much I love not just teaching someone how to do something, step 1 through 10, but it's more like the perspectives that you should have that nobody ever taught me when I was a new nurse. Like, if you don't set boundaries now because you feel bad, because you're not used to that discomfort of setting boundaries, whether it be, no, I'm not picking up extra, or no, I can't accept this patient because it's dangerous, or you're going to learn the hard way later. Like, I didn't realize how much I love teaching those things, and it's like a newfound passion at work. So while it's been stressful, it's made me a better nurse. It's made me love teaching. I don't know if I would get into teaching, but I do like the role of teaching that comes that comes with travel nursing. So I've come a long way, but I'm in a much better place now. But I think that all of us in healthcare really have to sit with ourselves and figure out like where we stand, because your mental health is at risk more than anything.
Did you ever experience a shift in culture when, like, are you seen as like the outsider as an agency nurse, and are they treating you a little differently, and do they give you more difficult assignments because you're working shoulder to shoulder with people that are doing the same job but might be making less than you, right? So like, how was that experience?
It's not always that bad. I've heard worse stories. I'm very fortunate. I have had experiences like that, and it's like very frustrating because you don't want to give them the satisfaction that you're struggling, because I've been under maybe an unfair assignment subjectively where I felt like I was drowning and I needed help, and I felt like no one was offering me help. It's made me a better nurse. It's made me learn how to be a friend. A friend instead of, because normally it would just make me angry, where I explain to people like, no one is stopping you. Like, you can do the same thing for yourself and your family, because travel nursing is very lucrative in that sense. Like, I can give you my recruiter's number. Like, I'm not the enemy. Like, the enemy is the system that led us to even needing travel nursing in the first place. Like, we're all on the same team. It's just made me redirect my emotions and figure out, like, because if we're just all mad at each other, of course our team isn't going to have the integrity to deal with the things that nursing is dealing with.
So you're leading by example?
Yeah, basically.
And you're trying to be helpful when they need help, and you know, compassion begets compassion, so hopefully it just comes back around? Yeah, okay.
Pretty much. It took a while. It took some resilience, but I've learned like that I've ended up making friends wherever I go, even if at first there might be a little bit of like a cold shoulder.
Sure. Does it make you wonder if you can ever go back to staff nursing if the hospital has enough money to pay for agency nursing?
I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it, because not just because of like the difference in pay, because I personally, and a lot of people disagree, I think all nurses should be making what agency nurses are making. I think they deserve it. I think there's a huge discrepancy between like what a lot of, like, not even just nurses, but like nursing assistants, like CNAs, like there's a huge discrepancy in what they're being compensated and how they're taken care of, on top of staffing conditions. There's that, but there's also travel nursing has the freedom of working contracts. So if you're tired, you can take a month off. You don't have like paid time off, but you're getting paid that amount of money to be able to take time off. It's just redirected to you in a different way than like PTO hours at a traditional staff job. For me, mentally, it's better, because if you don't like it, it's temporary. If you like it, they probably still need you anyway, so you can extend. It's given me a new freedom where I've been able to set more boundaries with myself and my personal life and my music, and just like really detach when I clock out. It just, I don't know how to explain it. And plus because some people are like, oh, I would never do nursing or travel nursing, because you never know where you're going to end up. You don't know what kind of patients you're going to get. They're going to send you to another floor that you don't work on. But all of those things, like, as much of an anxious person I can be, it's made me force myself to adapt to it and really mentally change my perspective. And it's just made me that much better at work. Like,
more resilient.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is happening. Oh, no big deal. Like, it's not that we're like, I had somebody ask me once, like, why are nurses so nonchalant sometimes or lackadaisical? I'm like, we're not. We have to stay calm. Like, we have to pick and choose when we stay calm and when we don't, because there's so much stimuli, and that would give anyone a reason to freak out, but we have to stay calm so we can think clearly and make sound judgment and choices from there with whatever we're doing for our patients.
Yeah. So going along the lines of patient safety,
Mm-hmm.
are there areas or opportunities within the role that compromise patient safety? Things like staff shortages, or just thinking about the nurse that was just recently
Mm-hmm.
accidentally gave a paralytic, and so like
Mm-hmm.
how often are you bypassing hurdles or checkpoints in order to do your job?
It's definitely on a daily basis. I mean, every day I go to work, we don't have enough nursing assistants, and we have a patient that we have to basically take full responsibility for, which that's fine. But just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. And the other day we had one nursing assistant and there's 30 patients on the floor. So they were just running around. We're hard workers. So of course we're going to be like, I'll take all the vitals on my patients. I'll do all the cleaning up. And again, just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should, because you can only do so much. And if I had one unstable patient, all of my attention to everybody else is going to be compromised. So these things only work for so long, where we bend because something isn't given to us that we need. It's on a daily basis, and I kind of struggle with how I can make an impact sometimes. I mean, I notice that when I'm teaching new grads.
Impact how?
It's something you want to change. Like, we know you're short-staffed, and we say it all the time, but nothing changes. And it's overwhelming, and you feel very powerless. It's hard to come back to work knowing that
What role do you need to be in order to make an impact in that regard?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I know you would have to be in management or in some way, shape, or form, but it goes down like a snowball effect. I mean, those people above us are getting pressure from people above them that this is all we can work with, and this is the skeleton resources that we're going to give them. I mean, I can't count how many times I went to work and we didn't have a certain supply of something that I use every 5 minutes on a patient. And I'm just like, okay, well, how am I supposed to do this? And it's met with, oh, well, the whole hospital is short. But that's like a new answer that I keep hearing, and I'm like,
and people just accept it.
But we're still short, even if it's just not us that's short. We still need something of A, B, and C to do our job. It feels very discouraging, and over the last few months, I've wanted to make more of an impact. I've thought about, like, should I use my platform for travel nursing? Should I use my platform for talking about, like, the injustices in nursing? But I don't want it to take away from my music, but it's kind of bleeding into my music because I also write about that stuff. So I'm kind of at a crossroads trying to decide what is going to serve me and also my profession the best. Still thinking about what that looks like, but I do know that I make an impact as far as my interactions with my colleagues, especially newer nurses.
Because that's within your control, right?
Yes, it's within my control, and because focusing on things I can't control, it gets tricky, because I felt like, well, I don't want to accept things that aren't right, like, because that's what gets us here, is that nursing is so resilient that they're like, how much can I take away from them, and how much is enough for them to do their job, even if it's unsafe. Which is why I want to do more, whatever that looks like. But my interactions with my colleagues, the statements that I make at work when I'm teaching, I know at least at the moment that makes a difference for now.
Sure, yeah. So what's your take on that nurse that made a medication error? Because there's two sides of that case, of like many nurses vouching and sharing that they've made mistakes, maybe similar to that. And then on the other side, there are people that are a little more unforgiving of, like, what happened to the 6 rights of medication? What happened to reading the label? How bad is the circumstances to where you just not double check something like that? So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of compassion for that nurse, and I feel very angry. I feel very hurt. It feels personal because she's one of us. Like, I'm a nurse too. Like, she made a mistake. I think the mistake is that when people say that they're on her side, that we're saying that she didn't make a mistake, which she absolutely did. But we're human. We're not machines. And I mean, I reading into the case, I know that they had been overriding medications for like a week or something like that. which is terrifying. So if I went into work and they said our whatever isn't working, or we're switching to a new system, you have to override your meds, I would absolutely not accept that. I would my only solution would be like to make a nurse follow me around all day and make sure that but that's not feasible. That's impossible. I have to give 100 meds between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. when I get there in the morning. You have to hit the floor running. There's no time for that. That's not feasible. Meaning it's not something that you can make us do. It's not safe. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to our patients. So right off the bat, that's an unsafe condition to be putting nursing in, and to expect them. Like, granted, there are the checks, but we have the double check of our of what we're used to in our routine with like working with a computer, working with other nurses for a reason. I think the nurse made a mistake, absolutely, but I think that could have been any of us. I don't think any of us are above that, which is what is hard to see, that a lot of people are saying, oh, I would never do that. But what if you were forced to override all your meds for a week? And what if you didn't have staff? And
just to play devil's advocate, how many medications do we reconstitute?
Like in a shift, for example?
In general.
Quite a few. I mean, several in one shift. I can tell you, it's a regular thing. Like it's
a regular thing.
Yeah.
It's and not how often are you giving Versed?
I'm never giving Versed, but I guess it depends on your specialty.
Yeah.
But yes,
right, if they're about to get
I'm
a
never
CT
giving
scan.
Versed.
Okay.
Now that actually also occurred to me how. I was talking to a coworker about this. At our job, and every hospital is different, you can't even override Tylenol. You can't override Tylenol. You can't override ibuprofen. These are things that I could go get at CVS. So I'm curious, and again, why I'm on the nurse's side, why I think she deserves a different outcome is because I have never worked at a hospital where you can override a paralytic or even Versed. I can't even override pain medicine if my patient is screaming out in pain and pharmacy hasn't verified that order, because pharmacy needs to verify that order, and that's just how the world works for safety. I have never worked in half as bad of the conditions that she worked in, and I think that both the nurse is responsible. I think the conditions of the hospital are responsible. I don't think it's
does that make you lose hope in the employer?
It does.
If they don't have your back.
It absolutely does, because, I mean, these are the people supplying your literal supplies, your staffing, how many nurses work on a floor, how many patients we take. And I can do my job great all day long. And I firmly believe that I do everything I can to take care of my patients. But I'm not going to lie, I don't have what I need to be able to be like pristine. And I think I wish I could spend more time with my patients and not just go in their rooms when I have to give them a med. I can't like even just like talk to them.
Isn't that what nursing students maybe think that they're going to be doing? Is
I think so. And it makes me sad.
Having more interactions with people rather than running around and
Absolutely. And being task oriented and just trying to do your to-do list, because you only have 12 hours to do it, which sounds insane. Like 12 hours isn't enough. It makes me lose hope, and it will definitely influence nursing. And I think that I think it's also an optimal time for us to be, I see people with huge platforms that I don't have that are nurses, and they're using those platforms to say the things that people like me and other people on that nurse's side all are wanting to say. And that gives me the least amount of hope, at least, that other people are speaking out and other people aren't afraid to say like that we've had enough, especially after the pandemic.
Is there an incentive to own up to your mistakes then?
I don't think so. And I think a lot of people are going to be afraid to say that they made a mistake, and to say that we don't make mistakes is wrong. I read something that said, like, if you've never made a mistake as a healthcare provider, not just a nurse, then you've either not been practicing long enough, you didn't realize it, or you're lying.
Sure.
And there has to be another way. I don't have quite the answer, since this is all so fresh, but you can't just make all of us afraid to speak up. It's not safe. Like, we're human. Like, there's so much information. It's so hard to learn how to be a nurse. You don't learn everything in nursing school. You learn it on the floor. We deserve better. Our patients deserve better. It's not just what about nurses? It's also, at the end of the day, what about the people we're taking care of? And it truly is a time for everyone to speak up, which they are. And I hope something changes.
Yeah. So let's segue into music. I want to find out what your process is, where you draw inspo from, like how do you write music, things like that. So start sharing. I'm curious, where does it start for you?
For me, like writing a song.
Is it like shower thoughts? Is it like
it is
pillow talking?
It is
like,
all over the place, and it is always during the most inconvenient times. Like a popular one is in traffic.
Okay.
Or not, I shouldn't say traffic. On the highway going 70 miles per hour, and I'm like, I really have to write this thing down. And like, I love Siri is just, I am a fan of you like pressing that button and being like, write a note, and Siri being like, what do you want it to say? And be like persistent, desperately like trying to get all the words out. Like, it is all over the place. There is no organized method. There's just madness, but I love it. I embrace it. Sometimes it's in the shower, sometimes it's before bed. It's always when I can't sleep in the middle of the night. It comes to me all the time, and either it's a lyric, either it's in a concept where I'm just like, oh, I would love to talk about that, to write about that. Sometimes it's just I'm humming and I'm washing the dishes and I come up with a melody. Sometimes I see something else in an artist that I love, and I love the way that they moved me, and I'm just like, wow, I really want to make people feel that too, and I have something that's pertinent to that.
Yeah, so I wonder, so the last guest, MK, I'm not sure if she's listening, but she's an abstract painter. Mm-hmm. And if you were to do a commission, if she were to do a commission for you, she would ask you what some of your favorite songs are, and then she would listen to those songs, and then that's where she gets her colors from and her strokes from and her inspo from. So I wonder if it's like, it's like the reverse for you. It's like you look at something, or you might listen to something, and it makes you feel a type of way, and maybe from that feeling you get your own lyric or melody from. Is that kind of accurate? Okay.
No, definitely. And a lot of times it's like as simple as going through life and having an experience with my dad or like with another family member, and it's all like something about Filipino culture, and I get really excited, and I'm like, there's not a lot of songs like this, or there are no songs about this one topic, and I want to write about it. And because I think of the person that I was when I was growing up and I didn't have any guidance, or I think about the girl that I was when I was in nursing school and there was no one to tell me that I was doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or that I was a good daughter if I felt differently. I would want like young brown women to listen to that song, and which is actually like an actual lyric, like to all the little brown girls in the world. I want them to hear that and have at least like some sense of guidance that I didn't have. Sometimes it just comes out like that too.
So you have your guitar here. I'm not sure when the perfect time is to, which context, fits within which song. So does any lyric or any part of a song come to mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in my first single, which is out now, called Daughter of Immigrants, it is a song to my mom, who has now since passed, and it's supposed to be in the present time where I've finished nursing school, my dad is getting old, I feel a lot of pressure to take care of him. And like, he doesn't need like physical care, like he just to look out for him. Like, I just want to be there for him, whatever he needs. And feeling very confused, like, okay, you've made it. You're a nurse now. Now you can do whatever you want. Like, you're in Chicago, you can be an artist. But just feeling still these, like, you don't realize how much your values are still there until like you get to press pause and just like think about what's important to you and what pressures you put on yourself. And I think a lot of pressure I didn't realize I was feeling was honoring my parents because of everything that they did for me. And I wrote the song because I really just needed it to be said out loud, even if I was the only one listening.
To honor them.
To honor them, but the real honor is by honoring myself and my needs, whether that's setting boundaries with certain family members or not being afraid to be vocal about mental health, because I get a lot of pushback from family that I should, be more reserved and not be so open about it.
Are there any family members that actually came out in support or maybe ended up supporting you after maybe like they see something in you that they wish they could express themselves?
Not so much in family, unfortunately, and that's just something I've accepted, but all on accident upon writing that song and releasing it in Chicago, just the friends that I've made here that feel more like family and who have said that exact sentiment, like, I wish I had this growing up, or that song was written for me, or I went through the same thing. I hear you, I support you, I feel validated by what you wrote. It's talking about honoring your parents by honoring yourselves, and that you shouldn't feel less or worse of a daughter or son because of it, and that our parents sacrificed so much to take us so much further than they could, so you shouldn't be afraid or feel undeserving to go that much further. I don't know, for me personally, I felt a lot of shame and guilt around that, so it took so much out of me to realize, like,
Sure.
we're here, we can do whatever.
Yeah, I'm bummed I missed you. So you had a show at Side Practice.
I did. I had my first listening party.
Full to the brim.
Yes, it was the best day of my life.
So how was that process of just like getting your foot in the door, or having the opportunity to play somewhere, and then it was super moody? Like, how was that whole experience?
Yeah.
So walk us through that.
Yeah, it was amazing. They posted on their Instagram calling all artists, like, if there's something that we can share of yours, reach out to us. And at first I thought it was just for like visual arts, and I was like, no, like, it's for all artists, reach out. And I'm so hard on myself and I have so much social anxiety. I was like, they're not going to get back to me. I emailed them. I told them that, hey, I'm Filipino, I'm a singer-songwriter, I'm new to Chicago, I write about mental health. It wasn't supposed to be a thing, but it's a thing because I write about my own experiences. I write about the immigrant family experience in particular because that's what I relate to. And they got back to me and said that was super cool, we'd love to do a listening party. And I was like, what? I wanted to like print out the email and frame it.
You should.
You should. Absolutely should.
I'm sure Francis will sign it too.
I'm sure he would. So fast forward, I did a listening party. I had only released Daughter of Immigrants, but it was very successful. So basically I played like all of my unreleased music because I'm releasing like one song at a time for the album this year so that I can gain a following. And I just talked about my life, like we are here, and I talked about why I became a nurse, my mom passing away, and my experience with grief, my experience with mental health.
Did it end up being a conversation in the room?
Not quite, a little bit actually. And it was a lot of people coming up to me telling me that they were crying during my experience, my performance, and telling me like, me too. And the pleasant surprise was that they weren't all Filipino. There were all kinds of people in the room, all different versions of brown men and women. And I didn't realize how much I would speak to other people. Like hands down the best night of my life. And when it was all over, they reached out to me and said, thank you for performing in our space, but also thank you for making this a space where we have talked about mental health. And I didn't realize like, oh, this could be a thing. Like it was never my plan to be like, I'm going to be about mental health and I'm going to start a conversation, until that moment that I realized that this could be something which isn't really talked about in our community. And I could be somebody that could do something larger than myself and really changed my life, honestly. Like I don't think they realize how much they changed things for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I write about mental health. I write about the immigrant family experience. I write about things that I've always been told to kind of be more reserved about, and I just don't have.
You're at the brim. You're I know I am. It's like you bottle up all these emotions because maybe, external factors or internal factors, and you feel shame in sharing, and it comes to a breaking point, right, where you just have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can actually pull up a song lyric. For example, like there's these words in my song, Daughter of Immigrants, that talk about, for example, my mom, who was an incredible person. She was independent. She did all of that stuff so that we could be here today. She did everything for the family, and there was a lot of heavy gender roles in my home where like the women did everything, the men not so much, but the men made all of the decisions, but the women did all of the work. And I remember feeling angry for her growing up. Like I didn't understand why it was so unbalanced and why there were different expectations put on me versus my brother. And writing that song, I realized that there was so much pressure in taking care of my dad that I should be exactly like my mom, and like no questions asked, do all the work, even though you have a brother, even though you have other family members. And I remember like getting so much pushback when I would be like, no, that's not right. I would never do that to my own kids. I would expect them to divvy out the duties evenly and fair, regardless of gender. And even something as simple as that, I got a lot of pushback, and it felt so disheartening, because it's, again, like, am I a bad daughter? Am I, who's wrong and what's the truth? And writing the song, again, I'm talking to my mom saying, like, I'm supposed to be like you, but I know that, I just know it in my heart that I'm supposed to change the pace of things. I saw something, Hassan Minaj, his Netflix special, he talks about his influence on culture. And he says, well, as creatives, something along the lines of, as creatives, aren't we supposed to be pushing culture forward just a little bit by little bit? And I'm like, absolutely. And the song is being like, I know this is not what we were supposed to do in our culture and our family, but I think I'm supposed to change it. As cheesy as that is. It reminds me of like Mulan, which is my favorite movie in the whole world. I mean, she dressed
That's
herself
exactly how it is, yeah.
as a man to protect her father, because she, as like anti-respectful as that is, and how much pushback she got, even though they were wrong, she followed her heart. I love that I'm putting this in here. Mulan. Mulan changed my life, seriously. Little girls needed Mulan all across the world. But she did it, and it was right. She was right. She followed her heart, and she changed the pace of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can show you a piece
Please,
of
yeah.
my song.
Yeah, please.
Let me just... Okay. Is this loud enough? I think.
Yeah, I think so. Got the windows in here, guys, and it smells like fried chicken.
It does. It smells delicious. Okay. Is this okay? I'm just going to move this. So there's, for example, that's not what you worked for. That's not what you died for. Yeah, everybody wants me to step it up in your place, be the woman of the family. But mama, I don't wanna be. Wanna model your strength. Wanna do what you good at. Don't wanna die from the sacrifice. Wanna do what you gave me, the privilege to do. This is the path for me, for you. But mama, no matter what I do, everything gets darker. Mama, no matter what I say, Papa's still getting old. Ooh, yeah. Mama, I promise we gonna make it. We gonna make it. Oh, Mama, I promise we gonna make it. We're gonna make it.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you.
That was so good. I don't think I feel like I have listened to the single on Spotify, but like I don't remember feeling like that though.
Thank you.
Definitely different.
Thank you so much.
I got this private performance. No, but that mic is killer. You were killer.
I know, first time for this mic.
Right?
Thank you.
That was beautiful, and I'm sure a lot of people related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Oh, that was so good. Okay. What's a good segue? So what about your second single that you released a few months ago?
Yes. That song is about narcissistic abuse in my experience, and it's with someone that is highly respected, which makes it hard, and in my life, no matter what. And I was told never to speak up about it, and that like it was very hush hush, like you should be quiet about it, like don't say that, like when I would just like blatantly explain what was happening. And took me a really long time, and I just wrote about like just my experience with speaking out and how I think that you should speak the truth no matter what, even if it's family, even if it's somebody that you love or is highly respected. Because for me, it was more like, this is somebody who needs help, and they're not going to get help if we just keep brushing it under the rug. And it's me kind of standing up to them and speaking my truth and not feeling bad about like setting that boundary.
Yeah.
I'm also working on another song that is not recorded or released yet, and it talks about just like, for me, like mistakes that I feel like I've made because I was going through an episode with my mental health. I suffer from a personality disorder, from borderline personality disorder, and when I feel triggered or when I feel very stressed, or sometimes even if you do everything you're supposed to do for your self-care, which I think is important to point out, like you could be killing it like in life and really on top of self-care, I just get to these moments where I really dissociate, meaning like I really detach from my sense of reality, and I've got all these overwhelming thoughts that might give me all of this feedback, but it's not necessarily the truth about life, about people, about anything. And it's really hard for me to tell the difference. And over the last few years, that's really hard for people close to you to support you, to be there, to understand.
Because they want to be there, right?
Of course,
Yeah.
they want to, but it's hard, especially when I'm still figuring it out on my own. And it's kind of a song just being honest about the downfalls of dealing with mental health issues and not being able to find a reason to keep going, but that I'm going to find it on my own, even if I can't have anyone give it to me, which I think is what is the end goal. Is
Did you end up finding
going.
another therapist?
I did.
Good.
Yes, I did in Chicago,
good.
and it's great.
Because you had pretty specific things that you were looking for within a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And is that how people that are seeking, like, there isn't a therapist for everyone, like it has to be very niche to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was able to find someone who's Filipino, and I will say, like, it took me a couple years to be like, no, I need someone who's A, B, and C. Like, I never knew the act of self-care, of setting those boundaries, because no one ever taught me them, of being like, no, I really think I need someone that is familiar with the immigrant experience. And then a couple years later, I really think it would help if they were Filipino, because I don't have to explain all of this stuff because they understand firsthand.
Well, and to add to that, it's just like, and you've come to find out that there are other people from other cultures experiencing the immigrant, condition. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. There are other people that experience similar things, whether it's double standards and gender roles, like what I was talking about within my family, or just the pain of wanting to honor your parents and not knowing what that really means or what that looks like, because maybe that definition has changed and maybe your elders don't really understand that, and it's kind of up to you to redefine that. Absolutely. I don't want to say it's universal, but it's experienced by other people for sure.
What's been your experience with accessibility with therapy? Is it something that you can keep up with long term, like insurance wise or, out of pocket wise? Like how is that experience?
It's been good. I'm very fortunate to have happened to find something that works for me and my job and my schedule, but it took me a solid 6 months to find somebody that had a background of trauma, which is something that is very specific to me, so I can talk about my grief with my mom and how that's affected me, let alone having the cultural competency beyond just what you're taught in school, but maybe in personal experience.
So what are some tools that you're now equipped with to help you deal when you dissociate?
For me, I used to write on the walls in my Indiana apartment, and it started with Post-it notes.
That would help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I used to put things like life is worth living, get out of bed, your mom and dad have done everything for you. They did the impossible, so you can do anything. Our immigrant parents do things that we could never imagine doing. So it helps me conceptualize not feeling so unequipped to achieve something. And then I was just like, you know what, screw it. And I started writing all over the walls, which is actually another song that I'm working on about the writing on the walls. And it was just everything in the world that I could imagine that could get me out of bed. But not just that, it was always the opposite of what was going on in my head. Like, life is worth living. Like, you have something to offer to the world. Like, your music can change the face of mental health for people who look like you and go through the same things. Like potential song lyrics all over the walls that became future musics. It really was self-talk and in a form meditation eventually. And the song I can show you, called Reason, is a song to myself when I felt like I looked around and I lost a lot of people that I loved. Not their fault, but it was probably just really difficult to be by my side during a time when I wasn't really maybe just in my best state.
If the possibility was there, would you want to rekindle those relationships?
No, absolutely. I think I've spent a lot of time by myself that's needed to really figure out where I stand, what I can do for myself. But for sure, it was a mountain to climb. Like, but the songs have become like things that I've written to myself to kind of self-soothe. Like, it's like speaking to the inner child.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Please.
Okay. Can I drink some water?
Yeah. It's amazing how you can just snap into it, Deneza. Good for you.
Thank you. To the smell of fried chicken. Let me think of what part of this. Okay. So this is called Reason. It's not released yet, but we are recording it in a studio. So this will be the next song that I release. Is it that dark out? I wanna cry out. Don't wanna live no more. I lost my way now. Forgot where I came from. I can't go on anymore. Still I just need, I just need a reason to believe in me. I just need a reason to keep on singing my songs. I just need a reason, yeah, oh, yeah. I just need a reason, looking for a reason, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I dig.
Thank you.
I dig. So, what could someone who wants to support you during a state of dissociation, could they do anything? Even if you're telling yourself you don't want any help, like, what could they do?
I think they could. I don't think I've thought about it a lot because I've been focused on like self-management, of course, because I just have this like obsession with feeling overwhelmed and not wanting to put that on someone else.
Do you just push them away, or what do you?
Yeah, like, you know.
And
like,
should they keep coming back? Like,
you know, a lot of time has been spent alone. I think I'm in a much better place. But I think if you put it as in like, what can you do for someone that is going through something like that? The biggest thing to remember is like that person's sense of reality is not there. Like, I literally, it's the scariest thing to say out loud, but like sometimes I just can't tell like which thoughts are true. And it could be about me, what I'm doing in my life, how successful I am, like something I might be insecure about, my relationship with somebody I love. Like, it can completely skew anything. And as scary as that is, I think it's fathoming that with me, because even that scares people, and rightfully so. But it's when it's happening, it's remembering the biggest thing that I always tell myself is like, you're safe. Like, you're safe. Your feet are on the ground. Like, I always remember my parents. Like, that's just my grounding, like what they have done for me and how far they've brought me in my life. And that's like my motivation for everything that I do is my parents and what they've done for me. I always take it back to like my roots, like for me. And I guess if you're somebody trying to support someone, it's remembering what's important to them and what will always bring them home. And for me, like, I'll never get to a point where I'm like, oh, they didn't sacrifice. Like, I'll never negate like that compassion for my parents. So that's like my grounding. Like, it never changes, I guess, no matter how far gone I might be.
Is that something that the therapist taught you to ground yourself or find your center?
A little bit, yeah. It didn't come out that pretty or easily or black or like it took a really long time to get to that point for me to find something that will never change inside of me mentally and emotionally. It definitely was not that simple from the beginning, but yes, eventually I found something that will, like I said, always bring me home. And you know, like the song, as I was talking about finding a reason and feeling like the external things that I can't control are like falling apart. And again, finding a reason on my own to keep going. Yeah.
Did you have something to share from the Narcissist single?
Sure. I didn't know I was going to play that today.
I guess in relation to, I guess like let's build some context, right? So like in relation to how someone is mistreated by a narcissist, can you add to that?
Yeah, I think that when you are a highly empathetic individual alone, let alone being a victim of trauma where your idea of what is safe could be totally not right because of what maybe your norm was. Like for me, I've had a skewed sense of safety where I thought that safety was people ridiculing me or shaming me unintentionally.
Really?
But that was my sense of safety, because I don't think every Filipino family is like this, but I think that our elders are taught to give advice through criticism, but I think they genuinely think that's an act of care, because that's what their Lola and their mother
super
and their
blunt,
Lola's
yeah.
Yes, and it doesn't always, you know, I have thick skin, but it's not that thick, okay? So like my sense of safety was skewed, like like I hate to say it, but it took me a really long time to be like, people who are hurting you are not people who love you. And again, that has nothing to do with my parents or their intentions. Their intentions are great, but that's just how it manifests in my brain, because when you're a child, like your brain automatically is programmed to think that it's about you, when sometimes it's not, has nothing to do with you. When you're in an interaction like that with a narcissist, I think you're vulnerable for that reason, because you think that your sense of safety is somebody that's hurting you or maybe ridiculing you.
Or it's hard to leave.
And it's hard to leave because it's safe in your brain, or maybe not even on a conscious level. It's a subconscious thing, like somebody that you just can't let go. And it's someone that you there's that duality of I love them.
Mm-hmm. Or because you still do. I mean, it's not like you don't.
There's that duality of they can love you, but they can also not be good for you. And so the song is talking about the differences between actions and words, and how it's impacted me, and how I've grown because I've set that boundary of like no contact.
Oh, okay.
So
cool. I dig.
Let me see if I can play a song. Can you hear that okay?
Yeah.
You better check yourself. You got a lot of nerve on you when you can't sleep at night with the demons inside, so you force your pain on me. You cannot live with yourself, yeah. So you taught me to walk on eggshells. You told me, girl, shut your mouth, don't speak out loud. But it's okay when a man does it, am I right? Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm taking my gloves off. I know you got me messed up. Meet me in the ring. I'ma win your game, but not playing. I'm just getting started. Do you feel like a man now? I see how you break women down. Tell me, does it give you satisfaction? Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And how do you feel when singing that?
I feel good. I feel it's a lot of
It's
things
kind of empowering.
I was afraid to say for so many years, like since I was a kid. It feels good. It feels like, because I was constantly like groomed to like not speak up, or like it was bad if you speak up, or only other people are allowed to speak up, and it really skewed my perspectives. And so to write that song, like, it's really satisfying. It's very fulfilling. It's like I was truly afraid to say so many of those things, so I hope like it inspires someone else to speak up.
I think so. I mean, so did you how many songs did you play at the
Listening party?
Yeah.
A lot. I played a couple covers too. Maybe like 6 or 7.
Oh, yeah, that is a lot. And then you played at Argyle.
I did.
Yeah. How was that?
It was good. It was an experience. I've never been to Argyle before that, so it was cool to like meet the community.
Mm-hmm.
I met a lot of people that are my friends today, so it was great.
Is there anything coming up for you?
No.
Nothing coming up for you?
No, I'm just writing and recording and hoping that something comes up, but nothing right now.
Okay, so you're kind of looking, kind of not looking.
Yeah.
If something happens,
Mm-hmm.
it happens.
Yeah, not directly
Okay.
reaching out, but just working on myself and making sure that I actually have stuff to put out, and letting it, what happens.
Yeah.
So
Any advice for things like studio session and booking it, and because it's costly, right?
Yeah.
So like how does someone who's never been in a studio navigate that process?
like just like booking and just like going
Yeah.
through the whole
Do you
thing.
need an agent? Do you need a manager? Who is it a who you know kind of thing?
I think from my small experience, I think it's who you know. I don't have an agent or manager. It's all just me, which is really overwhelming. But just speaking up, even though I'm afraid, like finding a producer was like the most intimidating process, just because like I have so much social anxiety, and it's hard for me to be like, to recognize that this is a thing now that I'm doing. But just reaching out, just being straightforward. I did a lot of research for me, like looking up people's Instagrams and then looking up their Spotify playlists of everything they've produced and making sure that it fits with what I want to convey.
What's your process of? Can you elaborate on the producer? Like, what are you listening for in their produced tracks?
I'm listening for not just a specific sound mainly, but like just a feeling. I'm searching for a feeling. I'm looking for variety. Like, is everything heavily produced, or are there things that are stripped down that have just like a guitar and a voice and maybe just like a beat on top of it? I'm looking for variety. I'm looking for are they working with technical vocals, or are they working with a lot of rappers, just to see if like what I bring to them, what I write at home by myself, is something that is foreign to them or not, or if it's like something they've worked with
That they'll
before.
get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
I mean, I have no guidebook on how to do it, but this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm winging it.
Are there any artists that you'd like to collaborate with?
I don't really know anyone in Chicago, so I'm not sure. But literally anyone that I could inspire. I wish I had an answer.
or any instruments or any sounds that you want to collaborate with?
Not really, not yet. There will be.
But you're like
absolutely.
open-minded.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like anyone that loves to sing and serve like some sort of purpose with their music, like I'm open to that. So
Gotcha.
just the new kid on the block. So I don't know anyone.
When I first met you, Denise, it didn't feel like that. It felt like you've
I feel
been
like
around the block a couple times.
No, not yet. I'm trying.
So you said you're gonna slowly release more singles.
Yes.
Is it per month basis, or how often are you?
I would like to release, the goal is one song every couple months, so like 2 to 3 months. The goal is to have the album done by the end of the year. I don't know that will happen, but I'm trying. But I've really taught myself like to take my time, and I want to make sure every song is exactly how I want it to be, and just go with how I feel. Because, for example, like the first single was totally instinctive and off of feeling and not off of like rushing the process, and it was successful and turned out better than I ever would have imagined. Like
how it was produced, or how it sounds, or
everything, just
Gotcha.
the response, I never imagined that people in Chicago, like I'm the new girl that would dream of having all these Filipino friends, or just like a big diverse friend group of supportive people, and I never dreamed that my single would be shared by like 20, 30 people on Instagram and them talking about their experience.
You gotta give credit to the Filipino culture. you guys got each other's backs for sure.
I'm blown away. Yes, I'm blown away. Like, I am beyond grateful. Like, I never imagined that people would be sharing it and talking about their experience with their parents, or talking about their mom that they also lost, like, because they too grieve, or people coming up to me after my listening party at side practice crying, telling me like, thank you for being vulnerable. I never imagined that. So I want to make sure that I really take my time to build an audience so that it really can reach people as best as it can, because I didn't have any of this growing up. And I saw something the other day, which is very perfect timing. And it said, I don't know if this is always the case, but I feel like it for me, who you are now is who you needed when you were a child. And I'm writing all of these songs for myself. Didn't realize that it would speak to this audience like it does today. And I wanted to reach as many people as possible, because I didn't have any of this guidance going through nursing school, going through losing my mom, going through everything in my life. And I want other people to have that. Like, for example, the bridge in my first single.
Yeah.
So how do I start it? It goes, they want me to live for them. What if I don't want to? What if I don't have to? What if it could be different for all the little brown girls in the world? I'm out here singing just for you. So baby, keep your head up. If I can do it, so can you. 'Cause I know there's a different story for me, mama. Use my name to change the game. They tell me I'm crazy, disgrace to the family, but I just know I could change everything. I'm coming for everything you work for, coming for everything you cross for. Just guide me. Ooh, yeah. Like, when I wrote that bridge, it was it was a little bit different before. It was a little bit shorter, and I took some of the lines weren't there. And then the day of recording, I was like, wait, there's something else I want to say, because there's a lot being said. This is probably the most like content heavy song I've ever written, and I'm really grateful that it's my first single, because it's my entrance. And I was like, no, like, I want, obviously I thought I was writing this song.
This is the bridge for what song?
Sorry, this is the bridge for my first single, Daughter of Immigrants.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
It's
okay.
a totally different live. Plus,
okay.
I'm kind of nervous, so I played it really slow.
It sounds, I liked it.
Thank you. I hope it's a vibe. So I knew I was writing this song for me, and that's what I thought we were doing. I didn't know, this is before the listening party, I didn't know I was writing it for this community that
Sure.
What it became, like, beyond anything I ever imagined for myself. But I was like, no, like, I need to say more. And this is like what I spoke about earlier, like, where I was like, when your family is telling you that what you're doing is wrong, but you know in your heart, like, it's right, and it's your responsibility, not just as an artist, because that's where I'm coming from, but just as the next generation, to change tradition as best as you can, bit by bit. I knew I wanted to call out my audience, and I knew I wanted, in my years of therapy, I've done a lot of work with the inner child. So the inner child is like, obviously your inner child, but it's when I would dissociate, my very first therapist, who is since retired, but has changed my life, she would say, when you dissociate, how old do you feel? And I remember I was like, what do you mean? Like, I was 25. I was like, I feel 25. I don't, what do you? She's like, no, you don't. Like, think about it. Sit with it. And I was like, I feel like a little kid. I feel like that 12-year-old girl no one ever spoke up for me when I said I wanted to sing, or I didn't understand why I had different expectations than my brother, and no one explained that to me, or why, like, I was getting bullied for being the only Asian kid, or why was my family so different from my American friends and their interactions? They say I love you, they hug each other, they support their kids and their dreams. Like, what is this discrepancy? The inner child, and talking to your inner child, and basically meaning reparenting yourself, giving the things that our parents just didn't have the tools to give us because their parents didn't give it to them, not placing any fault because they're people and who did the best. All of that inner child work has changed my life. And I, again, thought I was writing this for me, but I was like, what if I could speak to other little girls? And so, like, I added that the day of recording, like, to all the little brown girls in the world, I'm out here singing just for you. So keep your head up. If I can do it, so can you. And saying that I could make a difference. Like, I've never been more proud of any lyrics in my life. And it would be a dream, like, if that could go as far as it could go with other people that grew up like I did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, the inner child is waiting to be heard and waiting to be healed. Thank you for that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Trying to think of where I had a question lined up, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, anything else on your mind, Deneza?
Not really. I'm just really excited to release more music, and it's all about things that I don't hear music about. Like, we don't really talk about it, or we don't really hear music about it. It's underrepresented, I guess I should say. So I really hope it makes a difference. I was just writing these songs for me all this time, and I in the short time that I've been doing this, like, actually releasing stuff and performing in Chicago, I've been pleasantly surprised and overwhelmed with the response. So I'm really excited and grateful to feel like there's something that I could do, even having experienced what I've experienced. That's unfortunate, but I feel like for the first time I could make a difference because of it.
Do you think good art comes from pain and struggle?
I do. It's really hard to think otherwise, but that's just because of my biased perspective. I think the best are all a little mad. I think the best artists are the ones that are the most afraid of being good enough. I had a complete, like, overwhelming reaction when you first invited me, and I was just like, it has to be good enough. I want it, like, just, I can't help myself. I'm just obsessed with, like, making a difference and, like, being good enough and singing perfectly, and at the end of the day making a difference, most importantly. But
I think that's really high expectations.
it is, and I can't help myself. My family is full of perfectionists, so here we are, and here's me healing from it and making progress.
So with such high expectations, how often are you delightfully surprised?
Often.
Really?
Like the listening party, and when I released the song, and I'm just, like, having a
presence.
presence.
Were you more nervous for this or the listening party?
Oh my God, I was more nervous for this.
What?
Because talking is like a foreign language to me. Because
versus singing?
If you said, can you just come and just do your thing? I'd be like, yeah, I got it. But talking is terrifying for a singer, at least for me as a singer. I'm not speaking for other singers, which is funny how I've learned in therapy, like, it's all full circle, where my safe space is. I actually had a therapist in the past be like, you don't give yourself permission to be vulnerable as a person. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to lose people. I don't want to be too much. I want to set strong boundaries. I don't want to overwhelm the people I love with my mental health. Like, I can carry it on my own. She's like, yeah, but you're so vulnerable as an artist. This is before my listening party. And she's like, just channel that. Like, people have loved and accepted you as an artist, so why wouldn't they love and accept you? And I was just like, wait, hold on. Did not ask to be shook this morning at 8:45 a.m. in therapy. Changed my life, this conversation. And I was just like, yeah, you're right. And it kind of blends together, like, me as an artist versus me as a person. I consider it the same thing. Yeah, so I hope I can make a difference, and I hope I could make someone who's going through what I've gone through or have gone through I hope they can feel like they're not alone. And does good art only come from pain? I'm not sure, but over the years I've learned to be exceptionally grateful for having a story to tell. Like, I didn't realize it could be something.
Does that cause someone
good.
to look for more pain then?
I mean, not me, but somebody else might do that. I don't recommend it.
Self-sabotaging.
I don't think so. I don't know about that. I think it's for me, my experience. I don't know about other people, turning something negative into something good, because I used to think that. I think of, like, for example, privilege. I used to think that because I had trauma, because I lost my mom young, because of the experience of nursing, going to nursing school and not wanting to, and fighting with my family. I thought that, oh, I have less than the next person who had, like, a supportive family and could go to music school. And, you know, like, I lived down the street from my dream college, like, from Roosevelt University. Like, I had a dream I was going to go to music. And it's funny because I'm doing something so much more successful, and I live down the street from that, like, vision I had for myself. And so it's, like, a funny reminder, like, look, you made it in another way. Anyway, I look at myself and I used to think, like, they have something I don't, I will always be less. And instead, today, if you ask me now, I have so much more because of what I've been through, and I get to have a story to tell. I don't know what I would write about if I didn't, and I don't want to write about things that are already on the radio. I want to write about things that I think make a difference for people like me that don't often have things that they go through represented. Like, it reminds me of, like, the movie Crazy Rich Asians. I love that movie. But, like, you think of the few Asian representing films, we see all the same actors because there's not enough.
You gotta go see ASAP. The latest movie with Michelle Yeoh.
Everything Ever All at Once.
Have you seen it?
I'm like going, like, this weekend.
We saw it last weekend. And
did you see all of the same cast members?
What? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I think it's gonna blow your mind.
Oh, I'm sure it will. And the only reason I bring it up is because this is amazing for our community, but we see all the same people, which is not a bad thing, but we see all the same people because there's just not enough representation, and I want...
Oh, you mean same people in that regard? Well,
yes.
the child actor from The Goonies is one of the main characters.
I'll have to see it.
So
maybe this is a far-fetched
But it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue between mother-daughter norms within the Asian culture.
Really?
And how the daughter wasn't, maybe not exactly with your experience, but like how she wasn't being seen or acknowledged because maybe actually as a lesbian. And but then, you know, the mom wouldn't, like, tell the grandfather, like, this is her girlfriend. Like, they were coming to a party and, like, they were going to introduce her daughter's girlfriend, but she was like, this is her friend. And then, like, that just is a catalyst for like the rest of the movie. But it's a dialogue on intergenerational culture within Asian Americans.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was about. I just
between, like, what you do for work, roles between partners, role between parents and kids, and yeah, it was good.
I'll have to see it.
It was good. It's I don't know if Justine agrees. It's like Marvel meets The Matrix.
Oh my God, I want to see it. I plan to see it in the next, like, 7 days. Don't worry. I'll go crazy if I don't. But all I'm saying is that, like, even in Hollywood, like, we have only a few handful of movies that we feel like, yes, I relate. Like, or like the new movie Turning Red was amazing for our community and what it represents. And I've never seen anything that represents what it talks about in the movie. I'm just using that as, like, an analogy. Like, I feel the same with music. I mean, I can name a few artists that are in the same realm, like Ruby Ibarra. I had another name and now it's not coming to me, but that's my point.
Sure, I understand. Yeah.
I hope that, like, it could just be something new that I hope one day
you find fulfillment through that.
Yeah. And I hope it could be something new where people are like, that's Deneza, like, she's a Filipino singer-songwriter and she talks about mental health, and, like, I want that to be, like, to excite people because it's not something we have, and I want the people that are like me to feel like they have a sense of community, even if it's just through me.
Yeah. When's the last time you felt like you made it or you leveled up?
The listening party at side practice. because there were double the amount of people who were supposed to be there. Like it just, and they didn't, a lot of people were like, came in the middle of the performance. So I remember like singing and being in the zone, made the mistake of looking around because I almost, which I shouldn't have done because I almost stopped singing. Because I remember looking over at the steps and there were people sitting next to each other, shoulder to shoulder on the steps, like sardines, like uncomfortably trying to be at the show, but there's no room. And I just felt like, wow, like people came here to hear you. Like they don't know anything about you because it's my entrance, and they came here and had things to say about what, because I talked in between every song about why I wrote it, where it came from, my story, what I hope to gain in sharing it. And it was just my first experience, especially with what everything I've been through in my personal trauma, where I felt heard and I felt seen, and it just happened to be at a performance instead of like a one-on-one with a friend or with family. It just, I have never felt like that ever, and I didn't know that that's what it felt like or what it should feel like in your own skin, like to be seen.
When do you think the next time will be when you feel like you've leveled up or made it?
I think when the album is done. Like I feel incredibly grateful every time I release a song, but I don't have an album out. I just have 2 singles, and I would definitely feel, I can already like feel the excitement, like just feeling like, yeah, like I released an album, because the album is going to be called Children of Immigrants.
Okay.
It was going to be Daughter of Immigrants, but I want, like, the same way I thought I was just writing the songs for me, and then I was like, oh, I could write it for brown girls. I surprisingly had an overwhelming response from men as well, and their experience, whether it was because they lost their mom or they had immigrant parents that are Filipino, what have you. And they were just like, oh my gosh, me too. And I was like, oh my God, I could do so much more. Like, you know, just not realizing the impact I could have. I want it to be more inclusive because it's going to be a collection of songs about, like I said, the immigrant experience, mental health. And while I can't speak for the experience of a Filipino son, because I know that can be very different, at least in my family dynamic, it's totally different. If there's something that speaks to someone, I want them to know, like, it's out there for them too. And I want it to be as inclusive. Coming from a place where I had no community, I want it to be as inclusive as possible.
Sure.
So I'm excited for that. I'll definitely feel like I've leveled up.
Would you like to do anything with that album? Do you want to go on a tour? Like, where do you want to play next?
It would be a dream to...
Let's manifest it right now, Deneza.
Manifesting is terrifying, but I totally am with you. It would be a dream to do, like... I don't want to say it.
Say it!
It would be a dream to do, like, So Far Sounds.
We're going to make it happen.
Like basically, like, my listening party, but on steroids. Like,
okay.
Like, where I can talk about mental health and I can introduce myself and just... I don't know, like, big stages by name besides So Far Sounds. Like, just... anywhere where people will hear me. Like,
it doesn't even, it's usually not a big stage, actually. It's usually
big,
it's usually just as intimate,
well known. Like, yes, because I want to keep it intimate. I don't want it to be, at least not right now. That sounds terrifying.
I wonder how many artists blew up after So Far.
I don't know, I'm curious, but a lot of my favorite performances are on So Far.
How many So Far Sounds have you gone to?
I've never been to one.
Oh,
I've only seen them on YouTube.
I feel like they just started up again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But anything like that, where it's intimate. Like, I remember when I was, like, in college, and I saw Alan Stone at Space. I think
Evanston.
It's still called Space in Evanston. And it was, like, he's huge, but it was a tiny stage. I'm, like, this close to him, and I can just, like, hear every thought that he's sharing with us, and, like, seeing all of the emotion and hearing his sentiment between the songs when he talks about them. I don't know. I guess I'm afraid to manifest out loud, and I probably should get better at it. Taking your advice.
The world will make it happen for you.
Yeah, and any place where people will hear me.
Now, when the opportunity presents itself, I think you'd be ready.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what if the opportunity presented itself and you weren't ready?
I feel ready.
Yeah.
But if you asked me 6 months ago, I would have been overwhelmingly. I would have been like, no, I'm not ready. I think I've gotten better in that aspect, where of feeling like. It's not just not ready, but I get overwhelming feelings of, like, it's not good enough, it's not there yet, especially, like, with the perfectionism. Like, an art piece is never done, and
yeah.
Which you need to decide when it is and when it serves its purpose and you're proud of it. I've come a long way. Like I said, with the first single, honestly, my producer, BJ, at the time, BJ Fernandez, is the one who convinced me to do it. He was just like, because I was like, no, it's not perfect. It's not ready. I actually wrote that song in Chicago. That's the first song I wrote in Chicago. And he's just like, well, if you don't do it now, then when? And I was just like, you're right. Like, we should just do it. And I didn't expect any of what came after that. So I have to just, really push myself to just do things, which is what pushing myself to come here today. Like, and I'm always pleasantly surprised. So I'm learning day by day, like, just do it. Like, you're never going to feel ready. But one day you'll see that you were all along, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I love it. Yeah. No. So I just try to have minimal expectations. Show up is the hardest part. Showing up is the hardest part. And then giving it 100%. But that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet other people's expectations, that's on them. That's not on you. And keep moving on. Right. It's like, it's so easy to dwell on past successes and issues and mistakes. But all you can do is keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty much all I had. One last question for you. If your mom could do anything besides nursing, do you know what she would have done?
She loved interior design and she loved gardening. I don't know if that's what she wanted to do. Oh, I lied. She loved that. She wanted to be a teacher. I remember this conversation. My brother telling me like, oh yeah, you're Lola. Shut that down so quick and said you have to be a nurse. But it's okay. I don't know why she wanted to be a teacher. I don't know if she just like loved to work with kids or I think she loved teaching because every single thing, it could be so simple. Like, I was so annoyed as a kid, like, because I just didn't know any better, and you're a little kid. But like, how to prepare something, how to cook something yourself when you're 14 and like can make a baked potato by yourself in the oven, or how to use this product on your face. But no matter what it was, she would like outline the steps and be like, and I would be like, yeah, I know how to do it. And she'd be like, no, you're gonna do it like this, and then you're gonna like. She was so she didn't care that I wasn't listening because I'm a kid, and she loved to teach. I think it was like a hidden passion, and it breaks my heart that it never got to be pursued. But like I'm saying in my first single, in Daughter of Immigrants, like, I get to break that cycle and do so much more because of what she did. And even though I can't do it, I can't change her life, I can change mine, and that just for me is like giving her that much love back, like by pursuing music. Do
you think she taught as a nurse?
I think she did.
Kind of like how you're precepting as well? I
think so. I don't know how, like, the details of it, but I'm sure she did, and I'm sure she was the same way at work, where I never saw her doing it because I wasn't in that setting, but I'm sure she did. I'm sure it was a hidden passion, and I'm sure she wished all the same things that I wished as a kid, that I could just like sing, and it was an easy pursuit. But I think if I could talk to her, I think she'd be happy with what she chose instead.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, Deneza, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
It was a joy. It was a pleasure. Thank you for being vulnerable, and thank you for sharing the music. I'm excited for everyone else to hear the rest of the album as the songs continue to come out.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see, your growth and how much you blow up and you becoming a Chicago staple. And, we're going to do everything in our power to get you on So Far and stuff. And when that happens, we'll be there.
That would be a dream. Oh my gosh. Yes, we'll manifest. Yeah. I'm like, just stop saying it won't happen. Like, just say it'll happen.
It'll happen. It's just when. And, we're about an hour and a half. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.